And well, hello there everybody. I'm just stopped here at a light and I'm driving at a time that I normally don't drive at, so I'm not sure what the traffic's going to be like. You know, so far it's not that bad. Just going to make sure everything's good. Yeah, clear, good. Make my check. Do my shoulder check. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn on my backup camera. There we go. Now I see everything. You know what's great about this backup camera? Actually, before I even tell you about what's great about it, I'll tell you why I installed it. So if you've seen any of my videos, you'll notice that at the back of my van, aka the tailgate, that there is, you know, there's some stuff there, right? And for the most part, I was happy to just have it the way it is, the way it was. And I had this cover, this sort of cover, so that when when I pull over somewhere or when I'm about to go to sleep, I put it up and, you can't see inside, because I just have this thing where it's called privacy. Sorry. Anyway, so I had that cover there. And I got kind of tired, taking it off, putting it back on, and so on and so forth. So I set it up in such a way so that there's a little more permanence in how it actually worked. So, however, along with that, it took more time to take it down, so when I'm driving, I can see behind the back of my van. Anyway, as it turns out, I thought, well, it really wouldn't take much for me to put up a backup camera. There's a whole bunch out there, and they've gone down in price considerably. The one I have is one of the cheapest backup cameras you'll ever find, and there's two reasons why I chose it the cheapest. One, it's not wireless, it's a wired connection, so no Wi-Fi happening. Secondly, actually this is also still part of one, but maybe I have three reasons, but so far I've got two right now. The other one is I could very easily install it, because I've got the format scaffolding at the top of my van to do it. But also I could sort of just wire it down to my battery, and there's a constant flow battery, and it's not to my house battery, and it isn't draining my car battery. But I think more importantly, because the thing is so inexpensive, and inexpensive being a relative term, I think it was like $50 or something, that if someone wanted to sort of knock it off with a baseball bat or wanted to take it, it really wouldn't freak me out if they did, because I've gotten lots of use out of it. If you work it out on a daily basis, I think it worked out to like 5 cents a day so far. Let me think about that. No, that's wrong. It's not 5 cents a day. It's more like 50 cents, 70 cents a day, or maybe even less. So it's not a whole lot, okay? But I'm getting a lot of use out of it, because it's a wide-angle camera, and as a wide-angle camera, not only do I see the back of my van, the back of my van, but I also see a bit of the side, so that in some ways I almost don't have to sort of look left and right when I'm changing lanes. So it's really handy. I still do it, but here I could literally see if there's a car right next to me. You know that blind spot when you're driving? And there's always somebody that seems to want to drive in that blind spot. So this, I can see everything. So that's always really handy. So it makes things much safer. But there's also a bonus to the backup camera that I installed. And that is, it has night vision, which has been really helpful. And the other thing as well is, because I have the backup camera, and I actually see more than my regular window, I can sort of keep that cover on at all times. And the plus side is, because it is hooked up to my house battery, I could be parked anywhere and I could see what's happening behind me, which is really handy sometimes, especially if you're in an area where you're not too familiar. Rather, when you're not too familiar with the area. So I thought to myself, well, it'd be great to sort of get an idea of what's going on around my van. And I thought, I wonder if there's a camera system that will just give me sort of like another fisheye view of my left and my right, front, and so on and so forth. And so I'm looking into that. I'm in no rush for it, certainly, because that's just another expense and cost. And I don't absolutely need it. There are other things I would rather get. And it's also, right now, as it stands, it's not in the budget. I actually, I can't spend that much more on this van just because I'm saving up for all kinds of things. One of which you guys already know is saving up for a trip out west and sort of seeing where that goes. But I'll tell you one thing, it's really, really handy because I can see a lot what's going on. So essentially, it replaces my rear view mirror, because what I did was I mounted the camera, rather the display, right on top of my rear view mirror, and I just sort of used these hair ties to keep it together, to keep it up there. And so far I think it's working. And then what I will eventually do is get a much more permanent solution versus the hair ties, because it looks a little, well, there's a term for it. I can't, the term is, janky. I think that's the word. It looks a little janky, kind of like, kind of like this van, my van build. So anyway, so that's what I've got for the backup camera. It's a sad week this week. It's a very sad week. Right across the board, right? Especially what happened in Texas. You must have heard about it. And really, I don't ever want to diminish the tragedies and disasters that happen around the world. There's just so many things happening around the world that sometimes you don't know which one to spend your emotional energy on. Because really, if you think too much about it, if you invest too much into it, you're just going to get exhausted. But I think that's what humans do. I think as people, that's just the way we are, right? And I don't know what the solution is, and I'm not going to pretend I know what the solution is. Okay, that's a bit of a segue. It's completely offline. Excuse me. So I think we need distractions. I think people need distractions. Positive distractions. See, the word distraction is there's always a negative connotation to it. But I think something better than distraction is action towards doing what's right. And as we all know, what may be right to one person may be completely wrong to another. And I avoid engaging in internet discussions about those things just because, it's the internet. If you have any experience with the internet, it's almost impossible to debate progressively and constructively on the internet. Those things, if you want to talk to me about them, I need it to be in person. So I'm just putting it out there, and I mean, you can always make your comments, right? I'm okay with that. I think that's how I learned. I think that's how most people learn, usually. Okay, it seems that maybe it's a bug in the camera, the way these cameras are working, but it seems to sort of shut off on its own. And it's got plenty of room right now, so not sure what's going on with that. Okay, I'm just gonna crack open a window here, get some airflow going. I'm out of the highway anyway, so that's good, right? There are a lot of people struggling, and are you struggling with stuff? I think we all do, and everyone has a different threshold, emotional threshold, on how they deal with their struggles. I think also it depends on your lifestyle and what you're used to, right? Like, for example, if you're used to being able to just buy whatever you want, and then all of a sudden you're put on a budget, you feel like you're struggling. On another side, some people are struggling just to put food on the table, and that's always difficult to see. It's difficult to hear. So struggles, everyone's got them, right? Everyone's got a struggle. But there is a point where sometimes struggling or taking something on challenging can fine-tune you as an individual. And sort of what it does is it refines you, right? It refines you. For example, as you get older, as I get older, as we get older, there are certain things that you found extremely stressful at one time, but now it's sort of like, it's really easy. It's like sort of opening a door and walking right through it. It's not an issue. But when you first started, or when it first happened, it was a struggle, and that may have been very difficult for you. But you learned how to cope with it. You developed the coping mechanism, you developed the cognitive thoughts around it on how to deal with it, maybe even in a physical sense, on how to skillfully navigate and mentally navigate that situation, so it isn't as stressful. And a lot of that has to do with knowledge and experiencing it. That way you kind of get used to it, right? For example, I used to know a couple that if they didn't have $50,000 savings in their bank account, they thought they'd be poor. They thought they would be poor. They thought that they were struggling. And then you have others who can't even rub two nickels together, if they still have those nickels. I've yet to see one in a long time. And they're perfectly fine, right? So it's very, very different how people live we were all extremely different in some ways, but we're very common in many ways. And struggling, right? In some cases. I'm not really sure where this thing went, but where this conversation's going. But I thought of individuals who are struggling this week, and they're really, for me, it put my little life in perspective on the struggles that I'm going through. While I feel they are difficult for me, I can only imagine how difficult it is for those this week in particular, and what happened. I'm actually, I don't even know if I'm going to be posting this video. I might set it to auto post, and if it does, maybe it'll put things in perspective or in context.